876 Bumpy Johnson counted down like he wasn't surrounded by 6 armed men in a locked room. February 14, 1961, 11:52 at night. Vito Genovese pressed the .45 harder against Bumpy's head. 5 tough guys closed in tighter, hands on weapons, ready for a fight. They've been waiting years for this. The Red Rooster's back room, no windows, concrete walls. Genovese had tricked Bumpy here with talk of peace talks. Bumpy had walked in alone, exactly like they thought he would, the perfect trap. Genovese had explained the deal clearly. Work for us or die here. No witnesses, no problems. Instead of begging, Bumpy had looked at the gun and given Genovese 10 seconds to put it down. Now he was counting. 5, 4. The tough guys looked at each other. This wasn't how trapped men acted. Genovese's hands started shaking. 3, 2. In 2 more seconds, Vito Genovese would learn why Bumpy Johnson had walked into this trap smiling. 1961. Bumpy Johnson was 54 years old and controlled everything that mattered in Harlem. 110th Street to 155th. Numbers games, betting games, protection money, buildings. 28 years of building power. One careful move at a time. The Italian mob had tried to kill him in 1947, sent 3 tough guys to his apartment on 132nd Street. Bumpy put 2 in the hospital and 1 in the morgue. The message was simple. Try again and more of you die. The police broke into his businesses 47 times between 1953 and 1960. Every break-in turned up nothing. Bumpy had better lawyers than the district attorney and deeper connections with politicians than most city council members. When Captain Raymond O'Donnell tried to push him around in '56, Bumpy made 2 phone calls. O'Donnell got moved to Staten Island and the problem stopped. His rivals within Harlem had challenged him twice in the late '50s. Dutch Williams in '57, Marcus the Butcher Thompson in '59. Both times, Bumpy had handled the situation without firing a shot. Williams ended up working for him. Thompson left New York completely. But what kept Bumpy alive when smarter men died wasn't just violence used carefully. It was something the Italians never understood. When Mrs. Anderson on 125th Street couldn't pay her rent, Bumpy paid it. When Officer McCarthy from the 32nd Police Station started shaking down black-owned barbershops, Bumpy made phone calls that got McCarthy moved to another job. When the Italian mob tried to take over the Apollo Theater's business, Bumpy walked into their meeting and told them cultural places weren't for sale. They backed down. The people of Harlem saw Bumpy Johnson as the man who stood between them and the bad guys. He proved that respect wasn't passed down. It was earned through actions that mattered. Bumpy never backed down because showing weakness invited attack. He never made deals from fear because fear made you easy to predict. And he always stayed 3 moves ahead of everyone trying to take what was his. The 5 families had tested this. Bribes in '52, political pressure in '54, turning his people against him in '58. Every approach failed because Bumpy didn't react to threats. He expected them, prepared for them, and turned them into proof that challenging him was expensive. By late 1960, the Italians had learned their lesson. Then Vito Genovese decided to handle the problem himself. Vito Genovese was different. Boss of the Genovese family, controller of operations from New York to New Jersey to Florida, 300 made men under his command, political connections reaching into City Hall, the police commissioner's office, 3 federal agencies. But power wasn't what made Genovese dangerous. It was his personality. Most mob bosses let others do the violence, sent soldiers, enforcers, collectors. Genovese did the work himself when something made him angry enough. And in January 1961, something made him very, very angry. Angelo Russo, one of Genovese's heroin dealers, got caught moving product through Harlem. Bumpy's people stopped the shipment on 141st Street. 40 kilos, street value, $500,000. Bumpy didn't steal it. He burned it in a trash can and sent Russo back with a message written on his forehead in permanent marker. No poison in Harlem. Genovese looked at Russo's marked face and understood. This wasn't about heroin. This was about a black gangster publicly disrespecting Vito Genovese, treating him like he needed permission to work in his own city. There was a natural order the way Genovese saw it. Italians ran organized crime in America. Everyone else paid money or got buried. Black gangsters, no matter how powerful in their neighborhoods, finally answered to white bosses. Bumpy Johnson didn't answer to anyone. So, Genovese made a decision. He'd go to Harlem himself, catch Bumpy alone, put a gun to his head, make it simple. It never occurred to him that Bumpy might be expecting him. January 28, 1961, 8:35 at night. Genovese's social club in Little Italy. 5 men sat around a table in the back room. Vincent Vinny Slick Marraro, Tommy Agnello, Joseph Catania, Frankie Shots Abate, Marco Bobbymana. Genovese poured grappa into 6 glasses. I'm going to kill Bumpy Johnson myself. February 14th. He let that sit for a moment. We set up a meeting. Tell him I want to discuss boundaries, split up territories peacefully. We meet in the Red Rooster's back room. He comes alone. We're waiting. I put a gun to his head. Simple. Vinny Slick asked the obvious question. What if he brings backup? Genovese smiled. He won't. His whole reputation is built on never showing fear. If I ask for a sit-down, just the 2 of us, he'll come alone because backing down makes him look weak to his people. Genovese had done this 23 times before. Different cities, different rivals, offer to talk it out, get them alone, kill them. The organization falls apart without its leader. 6 of us in that back room, Genovese continued. Me and you 5. Door locks from the inside. No witnesses from the main club. Bumpy walks in, never walks out. The men nodded. The plan was set. What Vito Genovese didn't know was that Bobbymana, his trusted driver for 8 years, had a cousin who worked as a janitor at Bumpy's betting bank on 141st Street. The cousin, Marcus, had pulled Bobby out of a $15,000 gambling debt in '58. Bobby owed him. When Marcus asked Bobby to keep an ear out for anything involving Bumpy Johnson, Bobby said yes. January 29, 1961, 6:30 in the morning. Bobby called from a payphone on Mulberry Street. My boss is planning something, Bobby said quietly. February 14, Red Rooster back room. He's inviting Bumpy for a peace talk. It's a setup. 6 men, guns. Marcus hung up without a word. By noon, Marcus was standing in Bumpy Johnson's office above Small's Paradise Jazz Club. Bumpy listened. Marcus told him everything. The date, the location, the number of men. Genovese's plan to use Bumpy's reputation against him. Bumpy stayed quiet for a long moment. Then he opened his desk drawer, pulled out $1,000 in cash, handed it to Marcus. You didn't see anything. You weren't here. Bobby stays safe. Understand? Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson. After Marcus left, Bumpy sat alone. Most men would have changed their routine, added more security, avoided the Red Rooster completely. Bumpy saw opportunity. Genovese thought he was setting a trap. What he was actually doing was giving Bumpy 16 days to prepare. 16 days to build leverage so complete that when Genovese put that gun to his head, the gun would mean nothing. Bumpy picked up the phone. I need you to find me everything Vito Genovese can't afford to lose. Bumpy spent the next 16 days gathering pieces of Vito Genovese's life that Genovese thought were hidden. A federal prosecutor named Martin Berkowitz owed Bumpy a favor from 1957. Bumpy called it in. What does the IRS have on Genovese? Berkowitz checked his files. Called back 2 hours later. The IRS had been building a tax evasion case for 18 months. Bank records, property transfers, witness testimony. They were 6 weeks from charging him. All they needed was one more person to cooperate. Bumpy made that witness appear. Anthony Rizzo, Genovese's accountant. Rizzo had a gambling problem and a daughter at NYU whose school money he couldn't afford. Bumpy paid the school money. Rizzo gave the IRS everything they wanted. Second move. Bumpy called Carlo Gambino, Genovese's rival within the Italian Commission. Gambino had been waiting years for Genovese to make a mistake big enough. If something happened to Genovese, Bumpy said carefully, would you be ready? Gambino's answer was immediate. I've been ready since 1957. Third move. Police Captain Dennis Ahern. Bumpy had photos of Ahern taking bribes from 3 different operations. Ahern had been protecting Genovese's gambling houses in Queens for $2,000 a month. Those protection payments stop tomorrow, Bumpy told him. And if I call you on February 14th after midnight, you raid every Genovese location in the city within 2 hours. Bumpy made 4 more calls. Lawyers, newspaper reporters, union bosses, each one a tripwire connected to the same machine. If Bumpy Johnson died on February 14th, everything turned on automatically. Rizzo's testimony would go to the IRS. Gambino would move against Genovese's operations. Ahern would start raids everywhere at once. The newspapers would receive documents showing all of Genovese's political bribes. Union officials would cut ties, leaving Genovese's legitimate businesses exposed. Bumpy put it all in writing, detailed instructions, names, phone numbers, evidence locations. He gave copies to two people, Ellsworth Gordon, his most trusted partner, and a lawyer named Samuel Leibovitz, who kept the documents in a safe with clear instructions. If Bumpy didn't call by midnight on February 14th, open the safe and execute the plan. Genovese could pull the trigger, but the bullet would cost him everything he'd spent 30 years building. Now, all Bumpy had to do was deliver the message in 10 seconds or less. February 14th, 1961, 11:48 at night. Bumpy Johnson walked into the Red Rooster wearing a charcoal gray suit and his trademark hat. The main room pulsed with Friday night energy. Jazz quartet on stage, cognac flowing. He moved through the crowd, nodding to familiar faces. A hostess approached. "Mr. Genovese is waiting in the back, Mr. Johnson." Private room. Bumpy followed her down the rear hallway. Heavy wooden door at the end. She knocked twice, opened it, stepped aside. Bumpy walked in. The door closed. The lock clicked. 6 men. Vito Genovese straight ahead. Hands in his pockets. 5 enforcers forming a half circle. Vinny Slick by the door. Tommy Agnello and Joseph Catania on the left. Frankie Schatz and Bobby Manna on the right. All of them had their guns out. Now, Genovese pulled a .45 from his waistband. "Thanks for coming, Bumpy." Bumpy stood perfectly still. "Here's how this works." Genovese walked forward slowly. "You have 2 choices. Work for me. Give me 60% of everything you run in Harlem, or I kill you right here in this room." He raised the gun, pressed the barrel against Bumpy's forehead. No witnesses, no problems. The 5 enforcers moved closer. Vinny Slick cracked his knuckles. Tommy Agnello's hand rested on a knife. They'd been waiting years. Genovese's finger moved to the trigger. "So, what's it going to be?" Bumpy looked at the gun, then at Genovese. Then he said something that made no sense. "You have 10 seconds, Vito. Choose wisely." Genovese laughed. "What did you just say?" 10 seconds to put that gun down, or you lose everything you've built in the last 30 years. The enforcers looked at each other. This wasn't how trapped men talked. Genovese pressed the gun harder. "You think I'm playing? You think this is a negotiation?" 9. "I will blow your damn head off right now." 8. Genovese's face went red. "You're dead. You understand?" 7. Vinny Slick stepped forward. "Boss, just do it." 6. But something stopped Genovese. Bumpy's eyes. No fear, no desperation, just certainty. Like a man holding 4 aces, watching someone bluff with nothing. 5. Genovese's finger trembled. "What are you talking about? What do I lose?" 4. 3 hours ago, the IRS received full testimony from Anthony Rizzo, your accountant. Bank accounts, property transfers, cash payments. They're drawing up the charges right now. The gun pressed harder, but Genovese's hand was shaking. 3. 2 hours ago, Carlo Gambino got word that you're making a move without commission approval. He's waiting for my call. If I don't call by midnight, he moves against every Genovese operation in Brooklyn and Queens tomorrow morning. "You're bluffing," Genovese said. His voice cracked. 2. 1 hour ago, Police Captain Ahern got new orders. If I don't walk out of this room alive, he raids 14 of your gambling houses at the same time. And the pictures I have of Ahern taking your money. Those go to the New York Times. Genovese's eyes went wide. IRS indictment. Internal mob war. Police raids. Public exposure. 1. How? Genovese whispered. "How did you? I knew you were coming 3 weeks ago." Vito Bobby Manna? His cousin works for me. You told me your plan on January 28th. I had 16 days to make sure that if you pull that trigger, you destroy yourself. Dead silence. The 5 enforcers stood frozen. This wasn't supposed to happen. Their boss had a gun to Bumpy Johnson's head. They had him surrounded. This was supposed to be simple. Bumpy's voice dropped lower. You have 3 seconds left. Pull the trigger and lose everything. Or put the gun down and walk out with your empire still standing. Genovese's hand shook violently. 30 years of building power, all of it balanced on this moment. Kill Bumpy Johnson and watch everything fall apart. Or back down in front of 5 of his own men. The gun lowered slowly. Bumpy reached out, took the .45 from Genovese's hand. Genovese stumbled backward. Face pale, breathing hard. He looked at his enforcers. They looked at the floor. Bumpy checked the revolver's chamber, slipped it into his jacket pocket. You're going to walk out of this room, Vito. You're going to leave Harlem tonight and you're never coming back because if I ever see you in my neighborhood again, I won't give you 10 seconds. I'll make 1 phone call and you'll be in federal custody before sunrise. Genovese nodded. A tiny broken movement. Vito. Bumpy's voice cut through the silence. Tell the commission what happened here. Tell them Bumpy Johnson knew you were coming 3 weeks before you arrived. Tell them I had your accountant, your rivals, and your cops all lined up before you walked through that door. Tell them the next person who tries this gets nothing. Vito Genovese turned and walked out. His 5 enforcers followed. None of them looked back. Bumpy stood alone in the empty room, holding Genovese's gun, listening to their footsteps fade into the noise of the Friday night crowd. He'd won without firing a shot. By sunrise, every mobster from Boston to Baltimore knew what happened. Vito Genovese, boss of one of New York's 5 families, had put a gun to Bumpy Johnson's head. Bumpy had counted down from 10. Genovese lowered the weapon and walked out embarrassed. The story spread like wildfire. Not just what happened, but how. Bumpy had known about the hit 3 weeks in advance. He'd turned Genovese's own driver into a snitch. He'd put together leverage so complete that a loaded gun became meaningless. Within 48 hours, Genovese pulled every operation out of Harlem. Betting banks, protection rackets, numbers runners, all of it moved to Brooklyn and Jersey. His reputation took damage that couldn't be fixed. In organized crime, backing down publicly is worse than losing a war. Wars can be explained. Running away from an unarmed man can't be explained. February 17, 1961. Carlo Gambino called a meeting with the other families. Frank Costello, semi-retired but still powerful, laid it out simply. We tried force in 47, Costello said, lighting a cigar. We tried money in 52. We tried turning his people in 58. Now Vito tried scaring him with a gun to the man's head. Every single time, Bumpy saw it coming. He let that sink in. So maybe we accept reality. Harlem belongs to him. The commission voted with everyone agreeing. No more moves against Bumpy Johnson. The Italian mob would focus on territories they could actually control. First time in New York history, the 5 families officially gave up territory to a black gangster. Bumpy didn't celebrate. February 15th, he was back at his usual table in Small's Paradise, meeting with community leaders about a youth center on 135th Street. Business as usual. But he kept the leverage active, the IRS case, the Gambino connection, the police captain, insurance that would last longer than any peace agreement. Vito Genovese's decline was fast. In 1962, federal prosecutors charged him on drug charges unrelated to Bumpy. He died in prison in 1969, still powerful in name, but never again working in Harlem. The lesson was clear. You could have more guns, more men, more money. None of it mattered if Bumpy Johnson had time to prepare. And Bumpy always knew you were coming. Bumpy Johnson ruled Harlem for 7 more years after that night. He died in 1968, not from a bullet, but from a heart attack. 62 years old, still respected, still untouchable. Even in death, no one moved against his territory. Vito Genovese spent his final years in federal prison, convicted on charges that had nothing to do with Bumpy. But everyone in organized crime knew the truth. The moment he walked out of that back room without pulling the trigger was the moment his reign ended. The story of February 14, 1961 became more than Harlem history. It became a lesson about power. Real power isn't about who has the gun. It's about who has the leverage. It's about preparation. It's about staying 3 moves ahead while your enemies are still planning their first. If this story showed you why intelligence beats intimidation every single time, hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed, You're missing stories like this every week. Drop a comment. Could Bumpy have handled this differently? Turn on notifications because next week we're telling the story of how Bumpy Johnson walked into Lucky Luciano's office unarmed and walked out with a deal that changed organized crime in New York forever. Remember this, in Harlem, you didn't survive by being the toughest. You survived by being the smartest. And Bumpy Johnson was always the smartest man in the room.